Steve Adamson, I've been with the Trust since the beginning in 2005 when Russ made his initial trip. Actually, my oldest son went on that initial trip in 2005. Came back with the idea of saying, we're going to build an orphanage. So going back 15 years ago, that was quite a task. Now here we are in 2020 looking back and saying, look at all that we've accomplished. But what really keeps me coming back is probably three things. Number one, I feel like I'm called to do it. It's something that I feel like I need to do. Number two, I believe it's the due diligence, being a part of the Mother Teresa board. I believe we owe it to all of you who are givers monthly or annually to this worthy cause. You need to know that this is a real thing. And number three is really just the people. The elderly and the kids, once you get a chance to meet them, it is powerful. And it is so lasting that it is so difficult to leave when we leave. We did something a little different this time. Usually we go and we might do a little work and we do little meetings and we visit with all the people. This time we actually had interviews of everyone at the Trust, from the elderly and then all of the kids at the Trust. There's a couple that stand out, but one in particular. There's a young girl there named Mary. And she's been with the Trust for several years now. And as she's telling her story, the interpreter is coming back to us and saying, this is what she is saying. She was orphaned in the hospital, does not know her mother and father, never has met them. And she's been with the Trust since she's been a young girl. And as she started telling her story and got interrupted by the interpreter to tell us, all three of us are just sitting there in silence, listening to her heart pour out. And here's the takeaway. She holds no ill will for her mom and dad, prays for them every day. And then she says the Trust is her family. If I didn't have this Trust, I would have nowhere to be. And when she's saying that, it was silence. And just, I glanced at Russ and he glanced at me and we're like going, okay, this is why we're here.
She says, thank you for giving the opportunity to study, help me even to study more so that I could help more orphans, whomever I find.
One of the interesting things about the kids there, the last time we were there, we had a makeshift soccer goal. And we brought a soccer ball and they cleared out a field and just played soccer for hours, and they don't have a lot of that stuff. This particular time, they strung a rope in between two trees. Now, mind you, there are plants there with sharp edges in the middle of the playing court. The court is not a court, it's sand. But I'd liken it to volleyball, even though the ball is extremely hard. But how they laugh, how they yell at each other, how competitive they are. So I was a coach on one team, Russ was a coach on the other. We won the first game, and I've coached a lot in my life, and it was one of the greatest thrills of my life. I turned to Russ and I said, this is the greatest coaching moment I've ever had. And then they said, it's 2 out of 3. We lost the other 2 games. So from my first trip in 2005 to this last trip in 2019, it's been quite a difference. You can see in the photos how initially in 2005, we essentially had one building. That was the building that housed both the elderly and the orphans. And now you fast forward to 2019 and now 2020, it's amazing. It's turned into a village. It's turned into a big complex of places where people can stay. We can separate the elders from the kids when necessary. There's actually a chapel there to have Mass for those who are Catholic. And if you're not Catholic, it's still a place to go and pray. None of this would be possible without your generous giving. So I want to thank you personally for all that you've done and appreciate your prayerful consideration for all that you're planning on doing this evening.
My name is Abby, and I'm one of Russ's daughters, and this was my second trip to India. It was incredible and also emotional to see everybody after 4 years, seeing how much the kids have grown. People always ask me, what do you do when you're in India? And honestly, it is a lot of celebrating. It's like a big family reunion. There's more dancing, music, and playing games than any human can handle in 10 days. Some nights, the kids stay up till 2 in the morning singing and dancing, and not only do we love it, but the elders love it so much to see the kids up there. When we were interviewing the elders, one woman in particular had a tremendous impact on me. We sat down and we had picked out a few questions to ask her, the first one being, what brought you to the trust? She told us about how her family had essentially abandoned her, including her son, and she had absolutely nowhere to go. And somebody found her on the street, showery, and introduced her to the trust. And so she's been in their care for several years now. Then the last question we asked her was, what can we pray for you? And in my mind, I was thinking she would say something along the lines of, pray that my son and I can reunite again. Pray for my family, pray for anybody in her life. But she said, I don't need any prayers. I have everything I need right here. And her answer struck me to my core. You know, we would look around, it's hot, there are flies, they have no AC. Still, they sleep on a cot and they have mosquito nets around their bed. We would look at this and say, you're kidding. There's nothing we can pray for you. This is the bare minimum, you know, food and shelter, but the big game changer is love. Unfortunately, in this area of India, there are a lot of elderly people who are abandoned on the street, literally left to die. This is the only place they can go to receive the love and dignity that they deserve at the end of their life. Thank you for your love and concern and care for the trust. For women like her, it is so important, and for all the others there. And with your help, we can continue serving the Valley of Smiles.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Abby, for those stories. And of course, you can't get out of here without me telling a story or two. I want to share a quick story with you. A lady that's been there since 2010, and when she first was there, she was taking care of a very sick son and also her husband. And I remember watching her one day during mealtime, feeding her son, because he couldn't feed himself, taking care of her husband, and she just looked overwhelmed. And I remember asking her, you know, how do you do it? And she goes, you do what you do. The son's died, the father's died, she's there now, and when she had a chance to do her video shoot that Steve and Abby talked about, I whispered in her ear, I said, do the other ladies know you're my girlfriend? And you know, big laugh, smile, and so on. But she leads the rosary at 3 o'clock every day for all the older people. And now she's, I think, experienced some joy from the trust and the oasis that it provides. And it's really been a heartening to see her every year. The other story is a young man in his 20s sat down to do his video shoot. And so we asked, what's your name? And he smiles and they say, well, he can't hear. Oh, so one of our helpers says, well, let me handle it. He reaches up, gets to the man's ear and screams, what's your name? And he smiles because he can't hear. And then an older gentleman helper, he's kind of the leader, he steps up, let me take it. He gets to the other ear and now he screams at a high decibel, what's your name? And the man smiles at us, and by that time I am doubled over, Steve's doubled over, because we have just experienced a Saturday Night Live skit. So those two stories can kind of show you some of the highs and lows of the trust. You've got some of the saddest stories and sorrowful stories you're ever going to hear, but you also have some of the funniest and most joyful stories. That's why we call it the Valley of Smiles. And really that's what the evening's about. And so now it's time to ask you to continue to help us. Your donations, your efforts, your prayers is what keeps this alive. And you know, we are looking to make sure we can have a sustainable, predictable income flow because they're depending on us. Now we have hundreds of people that are there every day to be fed, to be housed, medicine, school, etc. And so we're asking you to consider, if you're already a donor, can you increase your donations? Great. If you haven't been a donor and you want to consider being a monthly donor, we'd love to have you. I'd like to give you an update on one of the big projects that we're doing right now, and that is because so many of the elderly have died, Calvary, which is our cemetery, is now filled up, and so we are expanding that into the hill, and we're also putting a nice wide sidewalk so that they can carry the bodies and make sure that they can get all the tools and things they need out there. So that is a big project right now that we're doing. Again, Father VJ has taken on a new parish. It's a mission parish. It's about 20 miles away. He had a chance to get a very cush parish that was established, and he told the bishop, he goes, no, give me the one that takes the most work. and this one's going to take some work. And it reminds him of his 20 years ago when he was back at Perrette when he first started. So he'll still be there doing the spiritual direction for the trust, but he's also taken on a new parish, so keep him in your prayers for that, please. Thank you.